Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome to the Lotus Archives, the heart of arcane knowledge and the realm of Magic the Gathering. Guided by the sages at KLVD Studios, embark on a journey through ancient scrolls and powerful spells. From deck-building enchantments to legendary battlefield stories, we bring you the wisdom and wonder of Commander. Whether you're a master mage or just tapping into your powers, the mysteries of the multiverse are yours to discover. Let the magic begin.
Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to the next episode of the Lotus Archives. As always, I am Kava.
What's happening, people? This is Jack.
And this week, we are talking about Commanders. Whoa. What a surprise, a Commander podcast talking about Commanders.
Right?
No, we're talking about the upcoming Tarkir Commanders. And we got 5 of them. And we are going to be doing a deep dive into them today. And we are going to be talking a little bit differently than some of the other folks are. We're going to talk about ease of use for newcomers coming to the game. We're going to talk about some brief reprints that are coming in these, and we're talking...
Got some good ones.
Oh, yeah. And we're talking about how they are to play. And we have these things ranked in our personal ranking that we came up with on ease of play. And when we say ease of play, we mean how easy is it for a new player to jump in and pilot this deck for the first time. So, with that one, our first deck is the one that I was personally, when I saw the title of this, I was personally the most excited for this one, but it's probably one of my most disappointing one personally, but that's going to be Temur Roar, and this is your dragons. And for those that have been watching this whole time, you know my love of dragons. The one thing I will say about this deck, looking at this deck list, it looks like a mono red dragon commander deck with a few colors thrown in. With Temur, there are so many freaking options for dragons, and I feel like they dropped the ball on the dragons. But we can get into that a little bit later here.
Yeah. So,
Jack, who are the commanders?
Yeah. Well, so for the Temur Roar, we've got Eshki Temur's Roar. Funny. A green, blue, red human warrior. I believe she's supposed to be the new Khan or leader of this set, or of this, the tribe here.
Yeah, I think so.
So, which is cool. I like that we got like new Khans and dragons paired with each of these. I think that's a really cool thing about each of these decks. So she's got, whenever you cast a creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Eshki. If that spell's power is 4 or greater, you draw a card. If it's 6 or greater, Eshki will deal damage equal to Eshki's power to each opponent. So, at no point in there does she actually mention dragons specifically. She more so cares about the big, stompy, just like how big is the creature.
Yep.
So while that is very cool, I'm looking more towards Urine of the Unwritten.
Oh, boy.
Who is a 4 and 3, so 4 green, blue, red, for a spirit dragon with flying and tramples, 7/7. And it's got, whenever Urine enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library, and you may put a dragon creature from among them onto the battlefield. The rest go on the bottom in a random order.
Yeah, this is going into my Miram deck, by the way.
I'm putting Miram in this deck, so I'm buying this Precon. I'm going to have Urine as the commander for a hot minute, and I'm going to put Miram inside of it, 100%. Yeah. Like, I know Command Zone did a whole thing of this, and the very first card they mentioned, of course, was Miram. Like, you either put this guy in a Miram deck, or you have Miram in this deck. Either way, it's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, just cheating out dragons. Yeah.
Yeah.
At 5, 6, at the 7 CMC level, you're gonna have mana on the field, but there's just
Oh, for
something
sure.
about cheating out dragons, and this thing is going to be very, very nice
Yep.
with Miro.
We finally got a Zakama for dragons, basically.
Exactly.
You know, a way to cheat them out, put them into play, which is exceptionally cool. And we got some really solid new dragons in here. I know you mentioned how like a lot of the deck is very red heavy in the dragons, which like that's just kind of a side effect to that. Like a lot of good dragons are red. I feel like, and some of the list is a little awkward. I feel like there's a few things they could have put in here, like Tyrant's Familiar could have been a very good reprint here. It's the one dragon that cares about uh, stuff like that.
Like there is some cool dragons that are in this, and there's a lot of cool reprints
Yep.
as well as some newer cards that are in there. I know you were talking about some of the newer dragons in there. So if you want to continue with that. Here.
Oh yeah. There's one in particular that I'm actually very excited for. It's the Deceptive Frostkite.
Yes.
This thing is just really cool and really funny. I love it's a 2 blue for a 1/1 dragon with flying, and you can have it enter as a copy of a creature that you control with power 4 or greater, except it becomes a dragon in addition to its other types, and it has flying. So it's just a really cool thing, and I love like the artwork of it, as it's like this small kind of dragon creature that's projecting out this larger than life, thing about it to like try to survive in the wilds of Tarkir. Like I think it's just a really cool adaptive nature thing
No, it's really
that they
freaking
put in
cool.
there.
I
So
mean,
it's a really fun, cool thing. I'm excited for it.
you're getting reprints of Dragon Lord Atarka, Atarka World
Yep, that's a good
Enter, Atsushi, the Blazing Sky,
That's a good one.
Dragon Lord
I
Servant,
do like that we have.
Servant and Dragon Master Outcast are both in this deck. Not very expensive either of them, but they're both decent cards.
Mhm.
The one that I was, the artwork for the one that I saw, I was like, oh, that's cool. Hammerhead Tyrant. I think that's a new dragon too.
This is a new dragon. This one's actually really freaking cool. This
But-
one is. Yeah, this thing is actually bonkers. It's basically a. It's a bouncing thing. So it's 6 mana for a blue dragon. That whenever you cast a spell, you get to bounce a non-land permanent to an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to that spell's mana value back to their hand. So it's like that Hull Breacher,
Yup.
basically, that would bounce things whenever you did other stuff like like shit like that, which can be exceptionally bonkers. So hitting this off of Urine is just absolutely insane.
I mean, the one thing that I'm noticing with a lot of these precons is the land base alone in these things are heads above some of these other ones. I mean, you got pain lands in these precons.
Yeah.
I mean,
They put Flooded Grove in this one.
I saw
They
that.
got the double lands. Like you pay a blue or a green into it and you get double. So
Yeah.
it's like it's really cool.
I mean,
They got Haven of the Spirit Dragon.
you got the pain lands in like Yavimaya Coast and Karplusan Forest.
Yep.
You got a style dual land in Mossfire Valley. Obviously, you got like Path of Ancestry and Command Tower.
Yeah, all the basic ones. But they even put Temple of the Dragon Queen in here, which is really cool. It's like I think it's a new land
Yeah, I don't
that
recognize
they
that
have.
one.
So that one's really cool.
And
Path of Ancestry, of course, is good.
I mean, Temple of the Dragon Queen, it's all based around having dragons.
Yep. They got Haven of the Spirit Dragon in here, which is good. There's another land that they could have added that I think I personally have. I'll be putting into this, but overall the deck is very solid out of the box, I think. There's definitely a few upgrades that could be made in terms of, cutting out certain dragons and things. I'd highly recommend checking out the Command Zones video of cards to cut and things like that. They do a really good job
Yes.
of doing that.
Command Zone does a great job with
Yep.
all that. They obviously have a lot more time on their hands than we do when we're
Yeah.
producing these videos. But I'll leave
So as far
cutting and shit like that to them. But
yeah.
go ahead with your
so
next thought.
well, as far as ease to use, right? So where do we put this one in terms of like how easy is it to use? Like, would you want this to be for a new player, basically?
I would 100% give this to a brand new player
Yeah.
to play. Someone,
Absolutely.
granted, I wouldn't give it to someone that's never played a TCG before, but someone that has played a trading card game, whether it's Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh,
Right.
whatever of them, I think that they will do fairly well with this.
Yeah.
A lot of these cards do have a lot of words on them, so it's not just going to be
They
a
do.
straightforward, okay, tap, play a dragon, attack with dragon. It's not necessarily going to be that. So that adds a little complexity to it, but nowhere near the complexity of some of these other ones we're going to talk about.
For sure, yeah. This one definitely has, they've all got their niches and their ways of doing things. But I'd say compared to the other precons, this one is one that I would use to kind of ease a new player into the game. Because it's really just, I'd tell them, you have Urine as the face commander, right?
Yep.
We put Eshki in the 99. If we're just playing it unupgraded straight out of the box. Have the big spirit dragon as the leader. Because there's just so many dragons to hit off of that ability.
Oh my god.
So we definitely put, them in the head slot, and I would just tell them, okay, here's your game plan. You're going to ramp into 7 mana, you're going to play your commander, you're going to play dragons, and you're going to win the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's that easy. It's like you play the commander, you cheat out big dragons, you turn them sideways, and then you're off to the races. That's it.
But, so, this deck is fairly solid.
Yep.
A lot of decent reprints. Land base is pretty solid. And it's fairly easy to pilot, I would say. So,
Absolutely.
our next deck, it's the one I was personally the most excited for. And I've kind of, I don't want to say I've gone back on that, because I love the theming of it. But after seeing the deck lists and all that, it's obviously not even close to the most powerful one. But that is Abzan Armor. So, Abzan Armor, you got 2 face commanders with all these. The main one is Felothar the Steadfast. For 1 in Abzan, he is a 0/5 human warrior. And he reads, each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And it also reads, creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender. And its final ability is 3 untap, sack another creature, draw cards equal to the sack creature's toughness, then discard cards equal to its power. So,
It's pretty good.
this is a little bit more of an advanced door in the Siege Tower.
Oh, yeah.
I like this card as what it is a lot, and realistically, there's a good chance I'll just use him as a commander and build around him. His other one was Baator, Ancestor's Voice. So he is a 3/5 spirit dragon with flying and lifelink, and all these dragons have flying, so I'm not going to keep repeating that. But at the beginning of your end step, put a number of +1/+1 counters on up to 1 other target creature you control equal to the amount of life you gain this turn. Return up to 1 target creature with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, 2 very different play styles.
I'd say those are quite different from each other. Yeah, one caring about toughness, the other's more of like life gain, 1/1 counter, and then grave recursion.
Yeah, and I think
That one's a lot more Abzan, I think.
Yes.
But the toughness is
and I think
pretty solid.
and they're now down on the bottom here. But I think the biggest issue with the Abzan Armor deck is both of its face commanders here are almost fighting against each other in terms of what they can do.
Yeah.
There's not much similarities in between them other than the power toughness stuff and being a 5 toughness. For this deck, I definitely think Felofar is the better commander, I would say. In my opinion, I'm going to be building around Felofar. But not necessarily going to be using this deck.
Right.
Look,
I know if we look at the deck list itself, you can see that it's heavily geared towards the toughness, right?
Yes.
Because like there's not too many things with lifelink, and it's not exactly too super focused on that life gaining mechanic that Baitor wants to really be going for. So they really designed this with the toughness matters and, you know, hitting things with their butts, you know, for the most part. You know, you're seeing like you know, Tree of Redemption in here, which can help with the life gaining power boosting. Like if you get Tree of Redemption up high enough to where you can just exchange your life with it does qualify as life gain if you go to a higher amount.
Yeah.
Like if you're at say 8 and this thing's at 20, okay, well if you go from 8 to 20, then you just gained, you know, 12 life.
Exactly.
Through that. So that's a cheeky, cool way of doing that. But I mean, you have something like Indomitable Ancients in here that's just a 2/10 for 4 mana, so it's really just focused on the toughness and stuff. I mean, Rock's Faithmender being in here is good.
Yep.
Letting you gain twice as much life. But that's again just like one drop in the bucket of, you know, 20 other cards in here that all focus on the toughness of the cards.
I feel like
really,
this deck was trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Because, Fellothar has on his ability creatures you can attack as if they didn't have Defender.
Yep.
I feel like that is such a small thing. But most defenders have very high toughness. So
yeah, they got the big. So it lets the walls kind of get in.
Yeah.
You know, which is really solid. Like Wall of Roots, Wall of Blossoms,
Well,
Overgrown Battlement.
Yeah, it allows you to attack with Tree of Redemption.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
But looking at it, I mean, I'm still excited for this deck. Will I play it? Will it stay stock? I highly, highly doubt it.
There's definitely things you could put in here
to
make it better. But you would probably lean more in the toughness route, though.
Yes, I would.
Is what we're saying. Yeah, we would. Yep, same. You could put Doran in here.
Exactly.
To just have something else that focuses on toughness.
I would be making it a very creature heavy, which it already is.
Yeah, it's got 41 creatures in it.
Yeah, 41 with the commander, yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah, it is counting both, so I would say it's got 40 when you take out, like, Felithar to be the commander. You're left with about 40 creatures in the main deck, which is an insane amount. I think it's the highest out of any of the Precons.
I think so. 31, 36. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
At least out of this set.
Yeah.
But
when I'm done with dragons, it'll be higher, but that's, you know.
But, I mean, it has some cool reprints. I mean, you have Arasta of the Endless Web in there.
Dramoka, Dracula Dramoka is in here, which is pretty sweet.
What was the other one from this one that we were both like, holy sh... No, it was from the Sultai one. Never mind. But there is some cool cards in here. Obviously, you got Seedborn Muse, which is
that's a really
great
good one.
Card. And
they've got a good like pseudo like Defender tribal thing almost going on with X-Bane Guardian, caring about Defender, which is cool. So I think it's good, and they got the Crashing Drawbridge in here to give your stuff haste, which is solid. So you can just drop out these big defenders, these huge toughness cards, tap that Crashing Drawbridge, and just go to town.
But so I mean, like there's some cards in here that I'm like, oh, that's kind of double the whammy. Like you got Assault Formation in here.
Yep.
Which is, I believe, is a newer card.
Nope, that one's been around
not?
for a while. Yep, we've had that one for
Okay.
a hot minute, but it's good to see it in here.
It
Right,
is.
like if they're trying to make a toughness deck and not play Assault Formation, I'd be like, what are we doing here, Watsy? What's happening? What kind of a toughness deck is this without?
Because that allows you
without
to
that.
still play the game without your commander on the field.
Exactly.
And it's only a 2-drop. But,
Yep.
I mean, it does have behind the scenes in here, too.
Yeah, that was one I was just looking at, which that gives your creatures Skulk, which is really cool, as they can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So that's going to make your 0/13 tree practically unblockable, or your 2/10 for 4 mana. So it's like, it's a really cool. I always like the toughness decks because like it kind of flips everything on its head. In a sense, it's like, okay, well, typically you deal damage this way, but now we're kind of breaking the rule a little bit and altering it to be something else that it's typically not.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. But
I think it's fun.
In terms of ease of play,
Right.
it's fairly simple. This one
It
is
is.
going to be more, okay, you play lands, play your creature, and
Yep.
attack. What makes this, in my opinion, a little bit more complicated than the Teamer one is you gotta have a way to keep your commander out there or assault formations out there. Otherwise, you're just a big old blocker.
Yep.
And
You're just a
can't
big
do
old
shit.
wall. Yeah. So it
the
is
most
good in
part.
that sense that you have good defenders to keep yourself protected until you can get your commander out again, or until you have, like, if you put Doran in here and you got the assault formation. So like until you get ways to turn your blockers into attackers, you've got a decent wall of defense going for you.
Yes.
But otherwise you're just not really doing much. And I think that altering of how combat typically works can make it a little tricky to deal with, right? Because like if you're looking at the dragon deck, it's like, okay, we're just attacking with dragons and everything is done as normal. And then with this deck, it's like, okay, we're attacking still, but we're using a different number than the number before. So if I just taught somebody how to play, and I'm like explaining combat, it's like, oh, this is how combat works. Except in this random occurrence, when this happens and then we got this card that does this. And it can kind of make things, a little hectic if you're like, telling somebody, okay, this is how it normally works, but you've got cards that will just completely change the rules, in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, the lands themselves, I think the Teamer deck has a better land base in terms of value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have any of the pain lands in this one that I saw on my quick look through.
Yeah, I mean,
Great.
they got the temples, which is good. Twilight Mire is pretty hot.
Yes.
They got the woodland cemeteries and,
I mean, you got the
Isolated
isolated
Chapel
chapel
and all that.
and the check lands, or what the hell?
yeah, I like the
called?
check lands.
Yeah, check
I
lands.
typically always run the check lands.
I mean, I always run them in my decks, regardless if they're
Yeah.
multicolor. But
I can't stand the lands that are like Sungrass Prairie, where you pay 1, tap it, and add 2.
yeah,
I don't know
hate
what it is
those.
about those lands, but I can't stand seeing them.
Yeah, I'm not.
And
the
yeah, I know
biggest
they
fan
have
of
good
them.
value. Like, I know there's value in them, but it's just like, if you play a turn 1, you can't do anything with it.
Exactly.
So I always hate seeing that in my opening hand with, like, not much else going on. It just, I don't know. I'd rather it just be something else.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, Abzan Armor, it's not a bad deck. It's still better
it's
than
solid.
a lot of these other decks that have been coming out recently. Which
It's this whole set. Like, these are some of the best precons I've seen in the past, like, 2 years.
and
These are solid.
it makes it for me, especially since those new commander brackets just came out a few months ago.
Yeah.
It makes it for me that I'm sitting there, I'm like, what the fuck? These are supposed to be bracket 2?
Twos. Yeah.
Like, these are better than
These
some
are
of my
supposed to be,
decks that are
like-
supposedly 3s.
Yeah. Like, these are supposed to be the baseline, right? Like, these are where, the base is. This is where you would build up from to go to a 3 or 4. This is like,
Which
unless you want to go further down, but this is
Yeah.
like,
Which this just puts a whole new mindset with my deck building, and I'm sure it's done with everybody else.
Yeah.
That if these are bracket 2s, then how are some of mine that are considered 3 on Archidex and all that? I'm like I'm looking at like the Jeskai and the Sultai one, and I'm like, these things will easily beat my tier 3s. Some of them, depending on who I'm playing against. But
Right.
at the end of the day, they did say you could reasonably play against a tier higher or a tier lower.
You
So-
could, depending on the functionality and how it's built, and because there is an element of luck to it as well, right? It's skill and it's luck. So we shouldn't, completely get rid of the luck
Exactly.
element of there, because it is that too. It depends on what you draw, just as much as it depends on how you know how to deal with what you draw.
Exactly.
So
And
there's that whole thing to it.
I just hope that we see these style of commander decks in all future precons.
Yes.
Um,
That have good synergy, have good reprints,
Yeah.
that know what they're doing.
because the last thing I want is them to go back and the next set that they do, the precons suck. And you're
Yeah.
looking at them like, how is this a 2, but the Jeskai Striker or the Sultai Arisen deck were a 2 as well? These decks are
Right.
leagues ahead. I kind of had that feeling with when they did the Eminence Commanders.
Those were wild.
I think
those
they
were
fucked up on those. But
Well, we didn't have brackets at that
Yeah.
point. I feel like if we had a bracket system back then, it could have made things a little bit better. Probably.
like I remember
I don't know.
going from the Edgar Markovs and the Arabo
Dragon and yeah,
Dragon
all that.
to I forget
right?
what the next set was, but I remember
I couldn't tell you.
I got them and I'm like, what the fuck? These decks suck. Like
Yeah.
even the commanders weren't even close to as good. So, but
I don't know how you top out Eminence though. Like
no, it's
they
hard.
they hit gold with that one.
Yeah, and
But-
we've only ever seen it once prior or once past it.
Yep.
And the deck itself wasn't even that great.
No.
But
But
regardless,
yeah, so Abzan's good.
yeah, I love Abzan. I mean, I'm a huge Abzan guy, but I'll be putting some work into this deck myself here.
For sure.
Maybe you'll see it on Spell Table one of these days once I actually get it in my hands.
We should definitely do that. We should do a Precon game where we play them out of the box.
Yes,
Because I know I'm getting the Dragon deck for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I ordered all of them.
Yep.
So you'll either probably see me play the Abzan or the Sultai one if we do that. But we'll see, because if we can get even a pot of 5 people and all of us play one of them on stream, I think it'll be pretty cool.
Spell Table doesn't let you do 5 people though.
Only 4?
Only 4.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. We had to like hopscotch around last night when my buddies and I were playing.
It'd be cool if you could do like 6 and you could do 2.
Oh, that's
heads.
too much. That's too much.
But
All right, so who's our next ranked?
our next ranked is Mr. Zergo Stormrender.
This is a cool one.
He is part of the Mardu Surge deck. So, Zergo reads, he is just a straight-up Mardu for casting costs. He is a 3/3 Orc Warrior, and he has Mobilize 1. Whenever a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, each opponent loses 1. And,
It's pretty good.
oh my god, yeah. And,
So for those that don't know, Mobilize is whenever he attacks, you make a tapped and attacking 1/1 warrior that gets sacrificed at the end step.
uh-huh. He
Mobilize
just
is
plays
good.
well with himself. And then his dragon companion is Nerev, Crackling Vanguard. For 2 in Mardu, for a 4/4 dragon with flying and death touch, he reads, when he enters, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. And whenever he attacks, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of differently named tokens you control. During any turn you attacked with a commander, you may play those cards.
That's actually pretty cool.
Well, fuck. So,
This is a tough one. These guys play pretty well with each other, actually.
yes.
This is interesting.
Realistically, I'm probably, if I'm playing this deck, I'm putting Zergo at the helm just because I can get him onto the field quicker.
That's true. The lower mana cost does make Zurgo very tempting as the lead commander here.
And even not even looking at the deck, I can see Zurgo and I'll be like, shit, he'd be a fun one to build.
Yeah, Zurgo's got some solid
He's
stats going forward. Like the main strategy it looks like for this one is make tokens and sacrifice them. So like the token generation aristocrat, go wide, beat face style. Seems really cool.
exactly. And I would, looking at this deck, I'd probably put in a couple different more sack outlets. Because just looking at it quickly, I'm not seeing many other than Zurgo himself. I mean, there might be some of the creatures that have a sack outlet built in.
Yeah, we've got Vasira Seer, which is a very good typical one that you'll see in a lot of aristocrat style decks. Which is a free one, which is very good. Aaron Benella's Ruin is one that has Menace. And it's got a for white and a black sack another creature, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. That's pretty good. Let's see who else we got. I mean, they put Skull Clamp in here, so
Yes.
that's like this is one of the few times I've actually seen Skull Clamp brought back into a precon compared to I think the last one I saw personally that I saw was in the Fallout decks.
Yes.
We had a new like the Mechanist style Skull Clamp. So seeing them put that in here is just bonkers as hell.
I mean, you got Blade of Selves in this deck.
Yeah, that's really good.
Like, this is a really freaking cool deck. And I think this has potential to run away with games.
Absolutely. This can go very wide, very fast. It's got a lot of low to the ground stuff. And then you've got things like Sun Titan to bring them back if they die. They put Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor in here just because they could, I guess.
Yeah, that one didn't really make too much sense to me. But, I mean,
It's pretty solid. It's not terrible. But you got Yahenni in here, Ophiomancer. Like, Yahenni's a great sack outlet.
oh my god, yeah.
Like, the fact that he just gets bigger when stuff dies, and he can give himself indestructible for sacking one of these tokens you make. It's just... It's a really crazy, fun deck that I can see really popping off pretty well with all these different token generators.
Yeah. I mean, and the value itself, it's decent.
Yeah, there's definitely value here for sure.
It's... If you're looking at Card Kingdom prices, if you're going to buy this deck outright, it'd be about $186, give or take.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I already deleted my page on the other two, so I can't go back and say the price on those ones. But I know
Yeah, I haven't
all
looked
of
too
them,
much on the reprint.
all of them have pretty good value.
Yeah. The
Unless,
dragon one, I think its reprint value was like 175 or something.
I think so. And
Yeah.
Abzan was very similar.
Yep. Yeah, so all very good. Very good bang for your bucks here.
I mean, unfortunately, the last one we're going to talk about has the worst value, but I think it's one of the better ones. More complex.
It's definitely very
ones.
potent.
But Mardu, it's going to be a good deck. You're going to see a lot of people coming into your LGS and winning with this deck, especially newer players. Once they get a handle on how the tokens encounters all work, they're going to do very well.
And the sack
with this
outlets
deck.
and all that. Yeah.
Which, I mean, the whole
The only
thing
thing
with
I
the
would-
sack outlets,
Yeah.
I wouldn't give this to a brand new player,
No,
but
I wouldn't.
it's arguably, I think this could be one of the quickest decks to win with.
Yeah. Aristocrats has always had, one of the more insane ways to just pop off and win relatively quickly, abusing death triggers, abusing the sack outlets, just cycling through different token generators and popping off in a lot of ways and just draining the board with Blood Artist effects, and even Zergo's ability that, if a creature token you control just dies or leaves the battlefield, even doesn't have to die, it could just be exiled or whatever. Um, you can just sack your whole board of tokens, and then whenever they die or leave, everybody's losing a life.
Exactly.
So the fact that he himself has...
Just pause for a second. This Mardu deck one, a lot of fun. Sack outlets could be troublesome for newer players.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Yes.
I think is what it would come down for me, and why I would put this there, as there's a lot of death triggers, there's a lot of things to keep track of. A lot of stuff that just goes in the stack when you're trying to keep tabs of all these tokens you're creating.
Oh, yeah.
And making sure you know what triggers go where and how to pull them off. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, that's for sure. So,
yeah.
Our next one is...
I like this one.
Easily the most value. And when this deck list came out, you and I were both like, holy fucking shit.
Oh, brother, I was losing my goddamn mind.
So,
I saw this. This thing is...
This deck...
Sultai, baby.
Sultai Arisen. And your face commander is going to be Kotis Sib-Sig Champion. And he is Sultai for a 3/3 zombie warrior. And he reads, once during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard by exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. Whenever one or more creatures you control enter, if one or more of them entered from a graveyard, or it was cast from a graveyard, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Kotis. Okay, that's not horrible. It wouldn't be
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it wouldn't be my first for a zombie style deck, but it's still good. Then his dragon is Teval, the Balanced Scale, for 1 in Sultai for a 4/4, and it reads, whenever Teval attacks, mill 3 cards. Then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. And he is the one that I would personally build around. I like him a little bit better. His artwork I like a little bit better.
His artwork is beautiful. That's a very gorgeous spirit dragon right there.
Yeah. What turns me off from Kotis is exiling the 3 other cards. Because just to get that to work, you gotta have 4 cards in the graveyard already, minimum. But
yeah, it's like it's like giving them delve, but like a set number of delve. Yeah. Which I'll tell you, from playing my dredge deck last night, you do build up a huge graveyard if you're putting in dredge cards to fill the bin pretty rapidly. I don't believe they put any dredgers in this deck per se, like Golgari Grave Thug or like Stinkweed Imp, things like that aren't in here. But you've got Citrus Supplier to mill a bit. Satyr Wayfinder is good. But if I were to get this deck and build it up, I would put a couple, just like Stinkweed Imp and Golgari Grave Troll would be at least 2, maybe Life from the Loam.
Yep.
Those would be the 3 main
Life
dredge
from the Loam
cards.
is already in the deck.
Oh, they already have Life from the Loam.
Oh, yeah. That was the one I was
okay,
shocked
so there you
in the
go.
Stack.
Okay, so we're good. So they knew to put at least 1 card with dredge in here, so you can get that going. I believe they have Dakmor Salvage in here too. They do, or what is it? Dreamroot? No Dakmor Salvage.
But regardless, this deck has some of the best reprints out of all of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does.
You have Obnixilus the Fallen in here, which is a $16 card. You got Dothy Voidwalker, which is a $12 card, give or take.
This thing is ridiculous. I hate seeing this here.
I mean, yeah. You got
this thing
of Worlds in there.
Oof.
So, why do you hate Dothy Voidwalker?
It's just obnoxious. I don't like that it shuts down other graveyard stuff. I'm not a fan. I just don't like when my graveyard stuff gets shut down by other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it says right away that if a card we put into a graveyard in an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, it just gets exiled with a void counter, and then you can sack it to take one of those cards. So on top of its shutting down other graveyard shenanigans, it's also theft. So like, it's just kind of insane to see.
But it's
But I don't even know if
fun.
that's the most bonkers card in here, because we've got a new card called Steward of the Harvest,
Yep.
which this thing is been seen all over the place. You know, paired with things like Wasteland and crap like that, where when it enters, you get to exile up to 3 target lands, and then creatures you control have the activated abilities of the lands exiled with it. What the fuck?
Yeah. It's an insane card.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
And even like the new card here, Tevil's Judgment, is really sweet.
yes.
It's a 3-drop enchantment. Whenever a card leaves one or more cards, leave your graveyard, you can choose one that hasn't been chosen. So you can draw a card, create a treasure, or get a 2/2 zombie druid into play. And both your commanders are all about bringing stuff back from the graveyard. So it's pretty sweet that you're able to do. That's got a lot of focus on not just putting things in the bin, but also bringing them back out. Is really solid.
Yeah.
So
I am very excited about this. It's got a very evil vibe to it, and I like it.
yeah, I think out of the decks, this is one that would actually probably need the least amount of upgrades to be super solid and just really finely tuned. Like, it's very finely tuned out of the box, which I think is where some of the question of like, okay, well, is it a 2 or is it a 3? Because it's if it's already got all the synergy it needs and it's already got, you know, the finely tuned pieces it needs, and there's not much else to do with it, then I feel like it'd be kind of tough to say that yeah, it fits in that, you know, baseline 2 area.
Yes. It's a good deck.
Yeah.
And obviously they're not going to put any game changers in these decks. There never will.
No, they wouldn't.
Although I wouldn't personally mind, like, when they did Commander Masters and they did the Modern Masters Commander decks, I was fully expecting, especially for those price tags that they were at, I was
Yeah,
fully
right.
expecting what would have been a tier 3, tier 4 deck. Not
At least something, yeah.
like, for the price tag of those when they first came out, especially the Modern Masters ones, they were fucking expensive as hell. And looking at it now, they're not even worth half of it. And the decks themselves, they're okay. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it had a lot of cool cards in there, but they weren't powerful compared
Right.
to the brackets today. Like, if I'm going to spend that much money on a deck, I could build a tier 3, tier 4 deck for less than 150 bucks.
Oh yeah, 100%. You could easily do it for like 60, 70, you know, even cheaper probably.
But,
But yeah, so Sultai is good. The graveyard stuff is a little complicated because you need to keep track of your graveyard.
cough, cough.
It's
We got a Baron in this deck.
yeah, yeah, we do. So that adds the experience stuff to it, which is wild. So graveyard stuff can be a little rough for new people to keep tabs of. Not impossible, but as compared to the other decks, it's just one that's. I'd say it's a little trickier to be like, okay, so on top of playing everything you're playing on the board, you need to keep track of your graveyard as well,
Exactly.
exponentially more than any other.
Yeah.
It's a second hand, basically. Like
Exactly.
it's like your main hand here, but then your real main hand is your graveyard. So, and if that goes away, you're kind of just done, right? Like that's kind of the biggest feel bad of like playing a graveyard deck. Your biggest strength and weakness is still that bin,
Because
right?
there's
If it gets
so many cards that just nullify your graveyard completely.
Yeah.
I remember back when
simple
I was playing...
Bajuka Bog.
Yeah. I remember I was playing my Marin deck when I first got her. And the amount of times... I ended up stopped playing her in my play group at the time. Because everybody had a way of just killing my graveyard in, and then I'm like, oh shit, okay. I guess I can't do anything.
It really does happen, yeah. If you're playing the graveyard deck and all of a sudden your graveyard just gets exiled or it goes away, you're kind of just stuck in the mud. There's not much else you can do in that sense. So that can be very frustrating for some new players. I think it's like, oh, I got this cool strategy, I want to do this cool thing, and then somebody just playing the game, right? They're just, hey, this is just a part of the game. It's how the game goes,
And
and it still doesn't feel bad though.
No, and unfortunately, if I see someone sit across from me and they're playing Marin, I'm not letting
You're
them
gonna
keep their graveyard.
No,
Like
that's just how it goes.
I try not to match my decks against other people's.
Right,
if
like
I'm
counter
sitting as
pick or
odd.
things like that.
But
Right.
at the same time, if I know you have a Marin deck, Jack, I'm gonna
Used
bring yeah, I'm gonna bring a deck with me that
Right,
does
you would want
well
to have
against
some
it.
kind of
That way, because if we're playing a highly competitive game, I
Which
want to
Baron
be able
would
to
be.
stop you.
Right.
I
Just
wanna be
as
able
you'd want to stop,
whoever.
I'd want to stop anybody else. Right.
No different than if I'm playing my Miram deck, you're gonna do everything in your power not
To keep
let me
Marin
cast
Miram
my
off the board.
dragons.
Yeah.
But,
Which that's even a thing that, like, for taking a step back, looking at these commanders here, like, if you're playing these, you best be prepared for them to get killed or removed. Like, I 100% am fully ready for the dragon commander, you and I, to be killed almost immediately, right? Because it's 2 dragons off of 7 mana, basically, right? Like, the odds of looking at top 8 and getting a free dragon for that, 7 mana to get a freebie,
oh my
like,
god.
that's a kill target on sight.
Especially if you
So-
get lucky and you get the right dragon.
Right?
Like, you can
So-
frickin' cast him and then pull a frickin'
Yeah.
Miram out your ass.
Absolutely. Which then it's just a matter of, okay, who do I kill first?
Exactly.
So yeah, a lot of these commanders like Zurgo definitely kill on sight. Very possibly. Taval, I think you could probably get away with letting Taval stick around for a little bit. But a lot of these are going to be just, a good number of them are going to be a kill on sight, so
But
be prepared for that.
what I like about these is, and we'll find out for sure once we sit and have a play session with these, but
Yep.
these seem all very balanced against each other,
They do, yeah.
which is what it should be.
Yep. Absolutely.
But, so, our last deck, oh, better be quiet. Our last deck is our probably one of the more complicated ones that I've seen in recent years come out as a Precon, and that is the Jeskai Striker deck. So, in terms of value, this is the lowest cost one, and it's sitting roughly around $160. But the commander is Shiko and Narset unified for 1 in Jeskai for a 4/4 human spirit dragon with flying and vigilance. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player, and you may choose new targets for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card. So, this alone is a great frickin' commander.
It's pretty solid. It's pretty potent.
It would
I like
be-
this flurry mechanic. It's kind of cool.
It would be one that I would definitely personally try and build eventually. It's a neat mechanic, especially with the flurry. And the artwork is great. It looks like they aged Narset a little bit, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because she shouldn't be.
Oh, that star on. They killed the artwork on all these cards.
Oh my
Like
God.
the artists were just chef's kiss.
Every
artists
single
were
one of
insane
these
here.
full art legendary creatures, unbelievable.
I love they went borderless with them. I love the
Yes.
borderless cards. These are all fantastic.
I'm really glad they did go borderless. It
Yep.
makes getting the commander decks special again.
It does, yeah.
No different than back when they used to do the oversized cards in the commander decks.
Those were always fun.
I would love to see the oversized cards return for the commanders, because I regrettably, just when I got them, I threw them all out. I'm like, oh, these are fucking useless. I don't need these.
I
Looking
have a
back
few
at
I'm
it,
holding on to.
I have like one or two in my bin, I think. But like, I'd love to be able to put those up on my wall in like a nice picture frame or something like that.
Yeah.
But regardless, before we go on a 30-minute tangent on what we wish
Right.
Wizards would do with commander decks, the second commander is Elsha, Threefold Master. And she is a 1/1 Jin Monk, and she has Trample. But she also has Prowess. For those that don't
Yep.
know, Prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get some counters.
Well, it
Until
gets
end of
+1/+1
turn.
till end of turn. Yeah.
So her final thing is whenever Elsha deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 white monk creature tokens with prowess themselves. She could be a very good deck on her own.
Yeah. This is actually. I think we were a little split here because like this is who
Yeah.
I would build.
Like,
I like Elsha.
Elsha is cool. I think she could end up being the more powerful one. Um,
I think for this deck, she's who I would pick personally.
yes. For this deck alone, I think you have to run with Elsha if you want to be
Yeah.
like super successful, just based on the deck list.
Yep.
Shiko and Narset, I think I would build them, but I would completely do a different deck list because I don't
Yeah.
think there's enough cards that target a permanent in this deck.
Right. Enough like value
Yeah.
to justify having Shiko and Narset. Whereas with Elsha, you could do more of like, yeah, it wants you to cast a bunch of spells, so it's like Stormy in a sense to get that off and get the prowess triggers up. But even if you just cast like 3 to 4 spells, make her a 4/4/5/5, that's still a good chunk of tokens you can make off of that. And there's a lot of good cheap spells to pull that off.
I mean, Christ, you could just put stuff in like Faithless Looting, Ponder, Preordain. Just cast those three
Yeah.
spells right there, and
then you're
she's
good.
already a 4/4.
Yep.
But
And even artifacts too. So like
yes,
artifacts, enchantments, anything non-creature counts,
yeah, this
which is really solid.
this deck, it makes it so I want to build more Jeskai. The whole theme of it, it's very freaking cool. You want to cast a lot of spells. Jack, I know you're more of the spell slinger than I am. So why
I was for a while.
yeah, so why don't you go ahead and talk about how do you think they did with the sorceries and instants in this deck?
They're all pretty standard. Like they're all really solid. They've got Ancestral Vision in here, which is really cool. I haven't actually seen this in a deck in
Yeah.
a good long while in a precon. So it's a good like kind of take on the old ancestral recall or old ancestral card that we had that was just pay 1 blue, draw 3 cards.
Mm-hmm.
This one has suspend 4, so for 1 blue, so it doesn't have a CMC to it. So you pay 1 blue and then you put 4 time counters on it, which come off at the beginning of each of your upkeeps. And then once you remove the last time counter, then you get to cast a spell without bothering with any kind of mana cost. And it's just target player draws 3 cards. So it's a cool way to like set up following turns of power because like you cast this for free, you can follow it up with a Ponder or Preordain or something cheap like an Expressive Iteration. You pop it off with those. You make Elsha really big. You make your other monk tokens really big if you've got them, and you're just off to the races there. They've got a lot of solid utility with Veyron, Voice of Duality, which is a card I would put in here. She's got the Magecraft, which is whenever you cast or copy an instant, she gets +1/+1. So it's like prowess, but not prowess, because this one only cares about instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
But she also has, if you casting or copying a spell, instant sorcery causes the triggered ability to go off, it does it again. So she doubles prowess on top of like gutter snipe, pinging people, and storm killing artists making you treasure. So you've got a lot of synergistic, typical cards that you would see in a Spellslinger deck.
I mean, you got Liar, Disciple of the Drowned. I mean, that's you can cast instants and sorceries in your graveyard have flashback.
Yep.
I mean,
And your spells can't be countered.
Yeah.
Any spell can't be countered, so
That
that's just
alone
wild.
works very well
Yeah.
with cards like Elsha, because you can just sit there if you have frickin' 5 blue mana open. You can just say, you know what, I'm gonna cast Ponder 5 times just so I can get the frickin' bump on her. If I'm understanding that correctly.
No, because Flashback Exiles.
Oh, okay.
Yep, Flashback Exiles is the card that you cast, so it's
Okay.
still very potent though. And then they
So
added
I was
Monastery
understanding that
Mentor
wrong.
in here. Yeah, no, so that's all right. But adding things like Monastery Mentor that you casting all these spells, well, now you're making more monk tokens. So it's got a lot of strong utility in here and strong synergies with Elsha more so than
Yes.
Shiko and Narset. Though Shiko and Narset can still gain value from you casting all these spells to just draw cards and alter things like that. Like your Ancestral Vision that targets a player, you target yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You could target somebody else with it again if you want, or you can just choose the same target because it's a May of choosing new targets, which you don't have to do. You can just copy that spell and draw 6. So that's pretty potent.
I mean, I know one of the cards we talked about that's new that we both were like, wow, that's fucking cool, is Adaptive Training Boast.
Yeah,
For this
that
one.
the training post is solid.
2 in a blue, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if this artifact has fewer than 3 charge counters on it, put a charge counter on it. Then it says, remove 3 charge counters from this artifact. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it, and you may choose new targets for this copy. Like, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yep, it's a cool deck focused around spell slinging and whether you want to just be able to copy spells and possibly choose new targets for them, or because that's the one thing with Shiko and Narset, right? Is that if it targets a permanent player, that's when you make the copy.
Yes.
Right. It's like when you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent player, and you can choose a new target. If you don't copy it this way, you still get the draw card. So like if you are playing a spell that doesn't get copied, then you still get some like value out of it.
Yep.
I guess, but like it's just I don't know. I feel like the value from Elsha is just a little bit stronger.
Oh, I think it's tenfold.
At least
compared
for
to,
me anyway,
Narset.
yeah.
But
So
with that,
but it's a little complex though. Spell
Yeah.
slinging is a little complex. It's like you're keeping track of your spell count. If you're trying to storm off, you got to keep track of how many spells you've cast. You've got to keep track of all the +1/+1 bits on your prowess creatures. And it's just deciding of like when to cast spells, when to possibly counter spells, if they've got counter spells or not. And it's just it all stems down to like, do you keep mana up to cast these instants? Do you just pop off on your turn? When is the right time to pop off? There's a lot of math and a lot of intricacies and pieces moving in this machine of a spell slinger deck. That's coming from somebody who's played nothing but spell slinger in high competitive formats, so it takes a bit of brain power to know when you're casting spells and to keep track of all the triggers that pop off when you cast those spells. It can just be a lot. It can be overwhelming. So
yeah. But regardless, I definitely wouldn't give this to a new player
no,
at all. I think it's
No.
going to be way too complex for them. But
just a bit.
Yeah.
just a little bit.
but
It's just
if you're looking to expand your horizons and start playing more of a spell style deck as opposed to creature heavy deck, I think this might be a good spot for you to jump
This is
in
definitely-
and learn how to do it.
yeah.
And realistically, for those that have known me for a long time and have heard me talk, I don't play many spell slinger style decks.
No, you don't.
I play a lot of creature heavy decks.
Yep.
And I'm looking to branch out from that more. And so for me,
See, I'm trying to do the opposite.
I mean, you know me. I
Yeah.
want to be able to have a deck that can do everything. Whether
Right.
one creature heavy, one focus on tokens, all that. I like options.
Yeah.
But
It's always good to have a select set of options, Have variety. Variety is the spice of life.
exactly. And as you know, mono blue, not my strong suit. The only blue that I've been playing recently is Esper and
Yep.
Demir.
Yep.
And blue is just a supplement color for me in both of
Right.
those decks. But I'm looking to expand my horizons here, and I want to build more decks, be a better deck builder with blue. But regardless, this is going to be a good deck for someone to jump in and learn how to play a Spellslinger style deck. It's not overly complex. Someone that's been playing the game for a little bit can easily pick this deck up and learn it, and then hopefully upgrade it to something that's more powerful for them.
Absolutely. There's definitely a good set of upgrades you could put into here, like Brainstorm and, just some other cheap, easy things you could put in here, like a Blue Sun Zenith maybe.
Yep.
I'm actually a little surprised I didn't put a Blue Sun Zenith in here.
Yeah, I am too, to be honest with you.
That would have been a good, that would have been a solid reprint to put into this deck. Blue Sun would have been good. Oh well.
But
maybe even a Pull from Tomorrow. Pull from Tomorrow would have been really good too.
That would have been cool. But
oh well.
Regardless,
it's all good. These are all great decks. I think they're all top notch.
Oh my god, they're better than anything we've seen in a long time.
Yeah. So overall, despite our ease ranking or whatever, I'd argue that these are all very potent decks. They could all play really well against each other, I think, and I'm looking forward to, any games we may be having in the future in the coming weeks that could get these going.
We aren't hinting at we're doing live stream spell table at all.
No.
But
probably.
Most likely we will.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be an every other weekend or an every weekend thing. It's going to be when we can get a pot of 4 people to all sit down together for an hour.
Yeah.
For right now,
if not longer than an hour.
Yeah. For right now,
who knows how long that game could go?
Yeah. But for right now, we're hoping to set it up so we can play some games, and eventually it'd be cool to sit and everyone's playing mono blue, everyone's playing mono white, green, Mardu, whatever. Eventually,
could be cool.
That'd be the goal, I think. Just so we can show off some of the decks that we've been talking about and decks that our friends have built.
Yep.
But with that being said, there's not many new spoilers that we're going to talk about today. Any at all?
No, I haven't seen anything too new. I think we're all pretty much all set.
We're pretty.
I know we were just focused on the commanders.
Yep. I'm super excited to start pulling some packs from Tarkir. I'm super excited for these commanders. And as always, I am Kava.
It's been Jack.
And we will talk to you guys all later.
Take care.